Ruslan.
All right, guys, I am here live with God Over Money's very own incredible lyricist, entrepreneur, community advocate, one time for AI, the anomaly. I almost called you by the wrong name. AI, the anomaly. I'm glad you're here, sis. How you feeling today?
Man, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling really good. Well rested. And that's different.
That's awesome. A lot of people may not know your story, though. You grew up as a foster child in the foster system and were able to defy the odds in a lot of ways, which is probably your name kind of hints at that, right? So tell us kind of how you grew up and just your backstory a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. I real quick, I don't know if on your end you hear that echo.
I don't hear an echo.
Okay. I wonder if it's on mine.
Is that throwing you off?
No, I'm gonna work with it. But
Okay.
yeah, growing up was it. It is what it is. This is the cards that were dealt to me. I grew up on the east side of Buffalo. I was born to a woman who consumed drugs. She had substance abuse issues, and I was 14 months old when I was placed into foster care. So me, my brother, and my sister were found. She left us with it says a an acquaintance, and we were left with this acquaintance for a little while, and we were found. It said that we were on our own for like 3 days. I was 14 months old. My brother was like 6. My sister was about 4 years old, and we were then placed in a foster care.
Wow.
And when my mom was found, she was found in a holding center, and she admitted that she was looking for her next fix. And so we were placed in a foster care, and we were separated at first. My brother went to a home. Me and my sister went to a home, and then we went to the home my brother went to, and my brother went somewhere else. It was chaotic at first. But the home that we all ended up at is the home of my adoptive mother. She wound up adopting us. And we were in the foster care system until she adopted us, basically. When I was 3, our mother passed away due to an overdose. And so my foster mother at the time adopted us when I was 7. So yeah, we were in there. It was difficult trying to maneuver through that, trying to figure out who I was, the identity situation, trying to figure out that, finding out that the father that I thought was my father was just my sister and brother's father. And I had a father out there. I didn't know who it was. I was 7 when I figured that out. And I just went through an emotional roller coaster ride. I was labeled a failure to thrive, and me, my sister, and my brother were labeled or diagnosed as emotionally handicapped. So
What does that mean?
man.
What does that mean, emotionally handicap? The first time I heard it was I was on your Patreon earlier, and I heard you use that phrasing, emotionally handicapped.
Yeah. So a lot of times the system will place that diagnosis, being that depending on how traumatic your circumstance is that you're going in, coming out of or what have you, determines how you can navigate through your emotions. And so they figured that since we faced issues, like Lord knows the things that we saw when we were younger, especially my sister and my brother who are a little older, there's a lot of things that, I'm not in a position in which I'd share right now.
Sure.
Some of this stuff is my brother and my sister's story to tell. Some stuff I witnessed that I'm not gonna, unload, but due to certain things that we saw or went through, we were diagnosed as that, and like I said, I was labeled, which they did a lot of labeling for foster care kids. They did a lot of labeling when it came to that, like failure to thrive. They determined that because of these circumstances, you're not going to be able to function regular in society.
Wow.
You're
That's
going to have
crazy.
issues. Which I had issues. I had a whole lot of emotional issues. I was very rebellious. I got kicked out of a school. I had to go to an alternative school. I fought a lot. But really, all of that was me trying to figure out what the heck is going on inside. You know what I mean? There's always a reason, So I was just trying to navigate my own stuff, you know.
So for you, was there a single moment where things kind of clicked and started to get better, or was it more of a process in terms of you becoming more stable as a person, and I'm assuming somewhere in that process, I don't know, when Jesus became your Lord and Savior in that process, how was that in terms of coming from trauma and coming from, you know, a pretty big degree of just stuff that you've experienced as a child?
Yeah, I think that it was a process, and then there was like kind of these kind of moments in my life. You know, I'd like to say, like, first and foremost, my adoptive mom did a really good job in exposing us to arts and culture and keeping us involved in activities that really expanded our thinking and just added value to who we were, you know. I think it was being involved in arts and education and after school programming, it really helped. Like that definitely helped me to kind of build this voice and build this identity. So I was always like intrigued by the arts, always looking for ways to showcase my abilities and writing skills and stuff like that. I think that is really what helped me. And then also, you know, she kept us involved in church. We grew up Kojic. You know, we were in church all the time. You know, skirts and, you know, even gloves. You had the choir
You had the gloves on.
Man, I had the gloves. I had the lace socks. I had the patent leather shoes, the greasy face, the slips with the dresses. So, you know, we definitely knew who God was and knew his power, his strength. And I was at a young age, I had the very like strong desire to please God. But I came to a point where it's like, yo, I don't think I could please such a perfect being. And it's too difficult to do so. So I basically chose to like do my own thing around high school. But to answer your question, like, yeah, I think it was a matter of over time, you know, I create my own identity, if you will. Because all throughout my life and as a young person, all throughout, it was just, you're going to end up like your mother. You're going to do this, or you're not good enough for this, or, you know, just this constant feeling like, dang, like I'm not good enough, or constantly getting in trouble and doing everything I can. Like, I'm going to have a good day today, but boom, here it is. I got in trouble again. Boom, here it is. I'm suspended again. I'm in a principal's office again. Like, trying to figure out, like, what's the point? What's going on within me, and why can't I get it together? It was very difficult trying to function, but you know, I think it's the arts and education that really kept me together.
Yeah,
and faith.
I think it's interesting that even as you describe Kojak and gloves and all these like particulars, I grew up Armenian Orthodox before I became born again Christian, and it was you know, lighting the candles and
traditions.
It's
right?
very tradition, and the thing that's interesting about that is, the thing that I do appreciate about religion and religious practice is that there is a clear acknowledgement that this God is a superior being and he is holy. And we're going to try to make sense of this. And it's going to look different. And we're trying to like live up to this holy, different being.
Right.
And I think the misunderstanding is in the grace. I think the misunderstanding is, like you said, you can never live up to, you can't light enough candles, you can't sing enough Armenian hymns and psalms, you can't,
exactly.
There is no living up to it, which is where we should land, is in a place of grace. But sometimes in grace, and especially in like modern churches, I don't know what kind of church you go to. I go to like more or less like a neo-evangelical, a little charismatic type of church. And sometimes the grace can translate as irreverence, right? Now we're a little too flippant with our freedom. We're a little too loose. We're just gonna do what we want, and
it has to be a balance,
yes.
you know. And that's the balance that I've learned over time as I matured as a Christian, as I gone through my own like research and understanding. It's that balance, and you know that back then, and no shots to the church that I grew up in. I mean, that's the foundation, you know, and I'm grateful for it. But the whole a kid like me,
Mm-hmm.
constantly trying the best that I can to do good
Yeah.
in school, but having these emotional issues that I didn't know how to interpret or go through with. And I loved God, but here it is. I like, man, I was off the chain. I was throwing chairs. Like I was bad.
Yeah.
But there was something happening within me that I didn't know how to express.
Yes.
So I go from like being good, going to church and stuff like that, and going on an altar and getting saved. And then I go to school, and then I get in trouble, and I like, leave the classroom without being, without permission. And then it's like, when I go back to church, I guess I got to get on that altar again and get saved again.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that thought
Yep.
back then, like this whole, I got to get saved so many times. Like, oh, shoot, I lost it. Now let me go on the altar and beg for God to give me my salvation back. There's a misunderstanding growing up at that time. Like, I had to do all these things to get back right with God, when that's not the case. You know what I'm saying? That's not the case. That's not how salvation works.
That's good. And we could, I want to get into the spiritual side, but just on a natural side, does your view of addiction and all these different things now, does it give you a more compassionate approach to people that are maybe exhibiting behavior that we see as self-destructive on this side of Christ, on this side of being adults, on this side of being grown up? There was a TED Talk that came out, and I highly recommend everybody to go watch it. And the TED Talk was called "Everything We Think We Know About Addiction Is Wrong." Everything you think you know about addiction is wrong. And the big idea was, when we're looking at people who are addicted, we just think it's strictly because of access and just because they want to do bad stuff. What you're describing is someone that's have gone through trauma, right? Has gone through a degree of despair, and it's manifested in misbehavior as a child. And thankfully you had the arts, and you had a loving foster mom, and you had God that stepped in, but that isn't always the case for everybody, right? Meaning that a lot of people don't get that degree of sophistication, whether spiritually, whether just through access to expression, and they can stay in that pattern of the addiction, the misbehaving, the wilding out, all of these different things. And so could you speak on that in terms of how you view people who may come from a criminal background, an addiction background? Or let me dig a little deeper. And I know we're just getting to know each other. Let me dig a little deeper. Your view towards your biological mother, has there been a degree of like release there, meaning that even though she made bad decisions and granted what you guys went through, do you have a degree of like compassion for her situation and how bad it must have been for her to be that far gone?
Yeah, absolutely. Yo, to be real with you, growing up, first of all, we'd have to understand the type of person my foster/adoptive mom was. She was in her 50s when she took us in. Mind you, she had her house opened up to over 30 foster children over time. So she was she was like a guru, she had a lot of different foster children coming in and out. And we were the ones that she chose to
adopt,
be moms for. So, growing up, what I learned about my mother, and when I say my mother, to understand that's my adoptive mom, that's my mom, she was very independent thinking, very strong, a lot of grit, a lot of hustle, and more of a move forward type of person. So growing up, we did not spend time thinking about our biological mom, especially after she died. Like that, she died. I remember going to the funeral. I was very young. I will never forget walking down the aisle. I remember that. But that was it. There's no mourning for my mom. There's no like clarity. There was nothing in that space. You know what I'm saying? It was just move forward. So growing up, it wasn't a thought. I knew I had a biological mother. It did hurt not to have her. It did hurt to see myself in the mirror and look just like her, but there was no more than that. It wasn't until I got into my 20s where I discovered that there was an issue and a barrier that was in my life that I couldn't get past until I faced the fact that I wanted my mother in my life and that I desired to have a memory of her and a relationship of her. Never did I feel hatred towards her. I just felt a very deep like frustration and a longing and a wanting of for her. You know, especially when I had my son. Like, yo, I wish you could have pushed past your addiction so you can see me and then see your grandson, you know, and then meet my husband and, you know, this constant thought. But yes, to answer your question, yes, absolutely have a compassion towards my mother. Like if she would, I mean, it would be crazy and weird, right? If she walked in here, it would be like, hold on, what's going on? But like, let's say I was able to have an encounter with her, I would embrace that woman and I would say that I love you and let's make this relationship what it could be. Like I wish I had that, you know, that opportunity to do so, to tell her like, I'm not mad at you.
Yeah.
I love you and we could work this thing out. Like, you know what I mean? So yes, I do have a heavy compassion for my mother. She was just a beautiful brown-skinned woman who went through whatever she went through and felt the best way to cope was to use drugs. She was born around the 70s or grew up in the 70s. And yo, during that time, you feel me, was a crack epidemic.
Yep.
So that's what she indulged in, and whatever led her to do that, that's what she chose, and that's what she got wrapped up in. Yo, it is what it is. You know, we all have our things. You know, I wish she didn't, but this is the situation. And it's painful, but I've learned that there's beauty in pain. Yo, if it wasn't for that, I don't know where I would be. You know, I embrace it in a sense, like, yo, this is my life.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's kind of like when we look back in our lives, and my mother deals with addiction as well, with alcoholism, and, you know, just more or less has made some pretty not the best choices with her health. And so she's dealing with the opposite side of the consequences, where she's 58, but she looks and functions much older and has had multiple surgeries and needs, you know, an addition, she's having an addition. And so you said earlier that you found an outlet through the arts and through, I'm assuming, music. And I know you also are a professional cinematographer and you do creative stuff. Talk about the freedom that brought you in terms of it just being an outlet.
Yo, man, the first and foremost, so we had to go to counseling. So I remember, and it was like a lot of on again, off again type of situations. But I'll never forget the time that I went. I was about 6 or 7, and this counselor told me, like, I can tell you're having a hard time expressing yourself. Here's a pen, here's some paper. I want you to draw, write, do whatever you want to express yourself. Right. And it was right there that I fell in love with that pen and paper, you know, in the process of, this is how I feel, and I'm going to translate this through this ink on this paper. So, you know, 6, it wasn't like I was writing soliloquies and, you know, some Shakespeare stuff like that, but being able to draw and then write down some things, create stories or what have you, really created this world for me to kind of hide behind my words and say what I need to say without people looking at me a certain way. I created characters, and most of the times the characters were a reflection of me, but no one reading it knew that. So I just developed a love for writing first, just to establish that. Like, my love for writing was the first thing. And then over time, I learned about poetry. I learned about music. You know, I fell in love with the art of telling stories through lyrics and on a beat. I went to, you know, a performing arts high school. So I went there for piano. You know, I auditioned for piano and I got in there. I was in a jazz band, did a lot of stuff there. I just embraced the arts, period. So I did theater, music, dance. I just wanted to express myself, the best way I could. These were like opportunities for me to, it was my language. It was a new language for me.
Yeah.
And I can navigate through that language in a way in which I couldn't with regular language. I couldn't tell you, like, I'm really upset because I don't know who I am, or I'm trying to figure myself out. I couldn't say that.
Yeah.
But I could get on stage and do a monologue and kill it. I could get on stage and play the piano and say that same thing, but with my fingers. I could get on stage and recite some poetry and allow myself to be free in that. But man, it was just my freedom. It was my remedy,
That's good. I could relate in a lot of ways, especially obviously being a fellow creative and coming from from a good amount of trauma. So I definitely can. I understand what you mean when you say you need like having an outlet, but it's not even you're not up there doing a monologue about your feelings. You're just doing a monologue, but it translates emotionally. So I think that's extremely powerful. And you've I mean, where do you think you would be without the arts? Like, what do you think the trajectory would have been?
Bruh, I have no idea. I'm gonna be real with you. I swear I just don't know. The arts is all of who I am, man. It's really all of who I am. I built a whole career off of arts and education. Like I run a whole business, off of that. So I have no idea, dude. I just really don't know. All I know is that I'm grateful that I'm in it. And that this is this is what I have, which is why I go hard about arts and education and implementing the arts in schools, and being a youth advocate and working with detention centers and, working with youth who have, social emotional issues and behavioral issues. And I showcase to them how they can use arts for their benefit and to express themselves, so I don't know, bruh.
I hear that.
I just thank God for it.
When did entrepreneurship play into this process? Because it's tough, if we're gonna be honest, it's tough for creative people to pivot and become entrepreneurs. A lot of us just want to be artsy fartsy and chase butterflies and rainbows and start stuff that we don't finish and dream big but not do much, and it was a tough transition for me. What was that like for you? When did it become more than just the arts but became a business and a livelihood for you?
First and foremost, I would have never thought that I would be an entrepreneur. You would have told me that when I was a kid, I'd have been like, what is that?
Yeah.
And why?
Yep.
Man, God is so, when I think about it, God is so good. The most powerful thing that was given to me was opportunity. And I took advantage of those opportunities. When I was a teenager, there was a program or there was an organization different people came together and they created this program called Yo Buffalo, and it was Youth Opportunity Buffalo. And there was this opportunity where me and a slew of young people can go to this space and they can be connected with a mentor, and they can learn about these different trade skills and job readiness. And we went on trips. We went to Arizona. So you took a little brown girl from the east side of Buffalo, from the hood, and you took me all the way to Arizona, bruh, among other like-minded young people, and we would do youth conferences. And so all of this stuff, all of these opportunities created this ability within me. And this yearning for I want to keep doing this. I want to do more. I want to do more. Feed me more. I was hungry for these opportunities. And then I learned about photography through an organization here in Buffalo called SEPA Gallery. I learned about video through Squeaky Wheels. So all of these cultural opportunities came about. I think that as far as entrepreneurship, I want to say I heard about people being business owners. I heard about that stuff. I'm like, maybe I can do this. I knew that with photography, I was like, yeah, I guess people get DBAs. Let me find out how to do that. I was always a grinder, always a go-getter. And always a researcher. So I'm like, well, let me try this. I think it's because of the opportunities that I've earned or gained that showcase to me that I am not less than, that develop this strength in me, even though even though I knew like I can do this, but I don't know if I could really do it.
Mm-hmm. Siri does the same. She does the same thing to me. She be eavesdropping.
Sit down somewhere, you know? I'm trying to talk. Just sit down and be quiet. But yo, like, I think it was those opportunities that built this confidence in me, which is why I go hard about arts and education and implementing arts within education for young people. It built confidence within me. The opportunities that I got to speak in front of large crowds at a young age, it built this confidence in me. Like, yo, I can go out here and get it. And it doesn't matter where I come from. That's key. It doesn't matter that when I was a teenager and I stepped out my house, across the street from me was a drug house, and next door was a drug house, and I would hear people in the alley. It doesn't matter, because there's more to it than this. There's more to it than just my street. There's more to it than just my school. Yeah. There's cities, there's other people. It just expanded my perspective and perception into where in my adulthood, even though, I still had that bit of like, I'm not good enough, but hey, man, I'm going to just step out there and take a risk because I want more. Yeah. You feel me? I was a foster kid. They said I couldn't do it. No, I want more for me. I want more. And I went for more. You know, I did whatever I had to do to make moves. You know, what's real crazy, what a lot of people don't know, I had my son. I was a single mother for a little short bit. I had my son. Prior to that, I had a darkness stage, right? And I was doing whatever I wanted to do. And, you know, just wilding out in the street, selling, you know, drugs and just doing foolishness, just like really destroying my life, really. And I knew it was a space in which this was not good for me. You know, wind up having my son, and something clicked in me. And I was like, yo, I cannot, in no way can I repeat the things that have happened prior to me. I can't. I have to be the best mom that I could be. And I knew that that meant I had to grow spiritually. That means I had to regain or come back to what I was taught, which is Christ. I had to get that right. Then I had to become educated. So I went back to college because I dropped out. I went back to college to get my degree. And I pushed my behind off to get the best job I could find. Bruh, I was on food stamps and in the system again, trying to do whatever I can. Like, yo, I don't want to go downtown, but I need help. And that's what it's there for. I went down there. I stood in them lines with my son in a stroller, feeling all types of ways of less than, being talked to and talked down to by the people that are behind the glass, you know, because they assume that you're not educated. They assume that you don't have it together. I had to do what I had to do, bro. Like, yo, yes. And in my mind, I knew. I said, as soon as I can get to where I need to get, I'm going to cancel all these services and I'm going to do whatever I got to do to get to whatever goal I'm going to get to. So that was like that first journey, and it was tough and difficult, not having stuff in my bank account, trying to figure out how I was going to make ends meet, paying for my rent with my food stamps. And then when I got to a point where I rose up within my job because I'm a grinder, I made moves. I went downtown. I said, I don't need this no more. And I moved forward. I went from food stamps to get to stepping up on another level within my job. I was working for an after school program, and I was just like a counselor, you know, working with the youth. And then I rose up to becoming the assistant to the program director. Then I became the program director, rising up like, yo, I'm going to do whatever I can to be better and make better for myself and my family. Come on. And so the idea of entrepreneurship stuff started off because I always had a love for photography. I said, well, hey, let me do this business thing. Yeah. And from there is history. Like, I just desire to be better.
Yeah.
I desire to not be a statistic.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a statistic. Yeah, I had to go into the system, and I had to, sign up for the stamps and, do whatever I had to do. But that's part of my story. And I didn't stay there, though. I didn't remain stagnant in that space.
That's good. And I think sometimes there's a disconnect for people who don't come from the type of trauma you're talking about. When you say, I needed to be more. I needed to be more. I needed to change my family tree. I need it, right? And they'll go into like well, it's supposed to be about the Lord. You're supposed to, you know what I mean? Like, and it'll almost present you with a poverty mindset of trying to push back and shame you, right? Again, now someone's changing their situation and they'll attempt to shame you in saying that is selfish, that is worldly, that is not of God. And it's like, I think if you come from an environment where you never had to want, you always had food, you always had shelter, mom and dad affirmed you a whole lot with positive words, and you're a snowflake and you're one of a kind, and then you grow up and discover that you're depraved and in need of Jesus and you're a sinner, right? Then you may take that angle of like, I'm gonna live a humble life, and and you've never really had to think too much through your vocational path. But in your situation, you have a freedom to speak about these things in a way that is compelling, because I think you come from nothing, and when someone comes from nothing, there is a deep desire, and I would say it's a healthy ambition. It's a godly ambition to want to change your family tree, to want to add value to your family first and foremost. You had a child, in your context, to get out of the system. You were in the system as a child. Now you're in the system as an adult. And so I think that's really interesting that you say that, because when I get on that energy right there, I'll get a lot of like, well, brother, it seems like you're just seeking your own glory and you're trying to you're trying to, and it's like, no. You don't understand what it's like to come from being on food stamps. I mean, we had, it was bad, so I get it. And I appreciate you being so, just so transparent and vulnerable and sharing that part of your story, because I think not enough people have that context. Yeah, I think it's
important, which is why, and I didn't understand this at first. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand this concept. I understand now how important it is for me to strive for excellence.
Come on.
All it is a matter of me striving for excellence, which the Bible speaks about. Whatever your hands find to do it as unto the Lord.
Come on.
So that means that I'm going to do it with excellence, bruh. Like, I have to do it with all that I can, so that people can see it. And my hope is that when you see what it is, that where I came from and what was labeled on me, and then where I am now, and the things and the achievements that I've had, I need y'all to see that this is only with God. Like, at least for me, and I know and I get that there's other stories that's similar, and perhaps they don't have a relationship with God. But for me, the biggest puzzle piece was the God factor. And it's faith and arts together, yo. That's what I'm about. Yo, man, I'm like, it is what it is. Like, yo, going from being left basically from my mom. She left us for 3 days with my brother. He was only 6. Go from that to come here where I am. Like, the opportunities that I've gained. Like, yo, I was a couple years ago, around the same time that I got signed by God Over Money, I had this crazy opportunity to be part of this competition. It was like a Shark Tank competition for 43 North. It was in partnership with Facebook and M&T Bank and some other companies. And it was kind of like this Shark Tank thing, and it was called Ignite Buffalo. And I had to pitch my business. And it's not just photography. Get Focused Productions is a creative media company where I tell stories, creatively. I teach. That's the main part of my income, is teaching, doing presentations, working with youth, but also working with organizations and educators. And then I give back. That's a huge part of it as well. So every contract that I earn, I'm giving back to the next generation of creatives. So I was given this opportunity, right, to pitch my business in front of these judges who are like big company heads. And even within that, I'm like, man, my business is not even good enough. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to speak from my business. I'm going to speak from my heart. And I went through this whole process. There was 400 and something applications. I was one of them that got chosen as the 50. And then it got chopped down to about 27. I was one of the 27 finalists, pitching my business, telling them what I would do with the money if I won. And then it came down to me being one of the 7, which you were guaranteed at least $25,000. I think it was 25,000 and then 50,000. And then the ultimate prize was $100,000. I get to 7, one of the 7 in the for the finalist round. And I, in my mind, I'm like, this is crazy. Young black girl from the hood, going through the stuff that I've gone through, telling I would be a failure to thrive. Man, coming from a woman who abused drugs, who died from it, constantly going through ups and downs. Here I am on a stage, looking out here, telling people this idea and this dream that I have. And they believed in it enough to invest in me. But I won the top prize, the People's Choice Awards. I walked away earning $100,000 for my business, to invest in my business. And right after that, I kid you not, all this other stuff happened. Where I got signed to God Over Money, and that was like, this is too much.
Yeah.
Failure to thrive.
Yeah.
Failure to thrive. Okay, like I'm sitting on the clouds. I don't know, but I think the key thing is, prior to that, me and my husband made a decision, a conscious decision, because I was working 9 to 5 and I had this side hustle. You know how it is. Yep. You got this dream, you got these things you're trying to do, so you got to work extra hard. I was doing my master's. I was going for my master's. I was working 9 to 5 and I was hustling with my business. And we were like, this business is becoming bigger and bigger. I think it's time for us to just go full time. Yeah. And so my husband was like, I got you. Do your thing. I trust you. And so went full time, and I kid you not, as soon as we were on the same playing field, me and my husband, we were one in this decision, opportunities opened up. That's when I got the 43 North Ignite Buffalo opportunity, like that kind of Shark Tank thing. That's when I got signed to the, God Over Money. That's when I start winning these multiple awards. I start putting on exhibits, and
that's dope. I mean,
gives me goosebumps.
Malcolm Gladwell calls it the tipping point. Right? When you chip away for so long and you're doing the same thing so long, and a lot of times you're working a job, you're going to school, you got the side hustle, you're doing the music, and it's years and years and years, and you finally hit that tipping point, and then you're an overnight success. Right? When
it seems like it, right?
Yeah, or it seems like it, right? It takes 10 years for the average overnight success, right? And so I think that's super cool. Can you talk I think there's a lot of folks that want to know just some more of the tactical stuff. You mentioned being on the same page in your marriage and being aligned in the kind of the trajectory where you guys were going to take your incomes and that kind of stuff. Could you share maybe some more nuts and bolts, some more real just pragmatic stuff regarding how you got out of the mundane of working a 9 to 5 and transitioned into doing creative entrepreneurship as a full-time thing?
Yeah, no doubt. To be real with you, one of the things that I discovered within my career, so my career has always been youth development, arts and education, all the time. Like I've worked with a lot of non-for-profit organizations, written grants, and developed curriculums and things like that. And what I learned earlier on is I got to do what I love. And that's always going to make things feel better or make me want to get up in the morning and do what I love. And the paycheck is just like this extra thing, and it's dope. It's like, yes, of course, it's going to be some hard times. This is non-for-profit is a very tough space to be in. And but because I work with youth, it didn't seem so difficult. I say that to say this. Choosing based off of my passion already helped my work not be mundane. So yes, it was difficult managing school, like a master's degree, and or even my undergrad. I was working 9 to 5 doing undergrad and side hustle. It was difficult, but I don't know. It's just like that hustle that I'm attracted to. Like, gotta move, gotta get it done. I think that what I kept in mind was I have to continuously build. Like there's going to be a risk for me to leave the 9 to 5, right? Mm-hmm. I have bills to pay. So that means that I have to grind as hard as I can until the one thing overshadows and overpowers the other thing. Yep. And that's what was happening. Yep. My business was like growing and I was spending a lot of time, and there was a lot of income coming in from that space. And so I had to make that decision. I know that there were times in which I had that itch, like, yo, I just want to quit because this is too many things. It's overwhelming. Yep. But knowing like, yo, if I quit, then we can't pay. We may not be able to pay some of these bills. So, yo, I got to keep moving. Yeah. I got to keep hustling. Yeah. And most of the independent contractors that I work, that work for me, a lot of them want to just, like, they want to quit their 9 to 5 job and they just want to like, yo, I want to go all in and be an entrepreneur. I'm like, yo, when you're working with me, keep your day job. Hello. Keep your day job. Keep your hustle, man. You gotta have grit, bro. You got to have grit. And whatever goal you're trying to achieve, you gotta constantly remind yourself of that goal. Yeah. You just gotta constantly remind yourself. I knew what I wanted, and I kept reminding myself, I'm going to get there. And when I get there, I'm going to appreciate all of this. Yeah. Yeah. Even though I'm tired, I'm going to appreciate this journey. I think there's 2 things you said that were really good. You said when one overpowers the other is when you know that you can take that leap. So I think that's huge. And Dave Ramsey describes it as the ship getting close enough to the dock. Right. Yeah. So you could take the run and jump over and make it to the dock. Yep. If you jump too soon, you're not gonna make it. You're in the water. You're gonna be in the water. It is not good. So I think I like how you described it. You said when one can overpower the other, from a revenue standpoint, from a momentum standpoint. That I think that is key. I think the second thing you said that really stands out to me is, you said you always found work that you enjoyed. You stayed committed to doing work that you love, even when it was a job. And the way I look at it is you can find a job that essentially, depending on your perspective, which so much what you're talking about is really mentality, but you could find a job and your job becomes the angel investor in your business by funding your lifestyle, right? And maybe there's some flexibility, or at the very least it's not as intense of a job, right? Meaning like it's going to be very difficult for somebody to do 8 hours of intense coding a day and then go spend another 8 hours creating video and photo, right? Like so you got to find some degree of balance where you leave your job inspired to go and do your business and your side hustle. So I think that's a great bar. So even just viewing the type of work you're willing to accept as a venture capitalist. These are your angel investors. Your job is your angel investor. Exactly. So I think there's something there. And then the third thing you mentioned, risk, right? The third thing you mentioned, risk. I think the part most people don't get, they'll look at my life or they'll look at your life and they'll be like, oh man, you're willing to take risk. And I'm like, you don't. Risks are everywhere. What? Yes, but there's a greater risk in me not doing this. Not doing it. That's the greater risk. This is the type of stuff. That's the type of time I'm on. Trying to help people understand that you being in a career that you don't really like, you just chose it because it pays the bills or it makes ends meet. I get that. But that is a risk. That's a risk you take. A risk to your happiness, a risk to your health on the long run.
Yep.
Like, dude, I'm happy.
Yep.
And even when I was working my 9 to 5, I was happy.
Yep.
Because I was doing what I love. And it actually helped within my business.
Yeah.
Because remember, like, a lot of people, you know, they'll view me as a photographer, but really I teach. You know, that's the biggest amount of income that I get. Like, I love to teach. I feel like you teach me something, I could teach it. If I learn something, I could teach it like that. I can create a curriculum for anything as long as I know what know the information. So working within all of these organizations, what that became was my network.
That's good.
Gaining the trust of all of these different organizations, building curriculums, that was part of my portfolio.
Yeah.
Me creating a curriculum within a program that I'm working in as an employee, all that did was help me understand go through trial and error. So these type of curriculums work for these students.
Yeah.
This is what works for these students. So when I stepped into like full time, everybody knew me. Like, oh yeah, definitely. Tina, yep, we worked with you before.
Yep.
Come on and work with our students.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we know you're good at building curriculums. Absolutely, you can speak to these students about X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
You know, I just build a base within my business.
Come on.
You know, so that I can literally walk into different spaces like, yo, I have this curriculum, and they know me.
Yeah.
That means that I don't have to switch up. Everybody knows me. I'm hip hop. I'm poetry. I'm photography. I'm video. I'm teacher. I'm artist. I'm all of that.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting. And so there's a sense of an understanding for value when I step into certain spaces.
Yeah. When I was working my job, it was a great way for me to sell tickets to my shows because we do these shows at the House of Blues, and you know how important a hard ticket draw is, right?
Bruh.
And so I would partner with my local House of Blues, and they would do a 50-50 split, and then 500 people would show up, 600 people would show up. Tickets sold, and they would bug out, and they'd be like, how are y'all doing this? Like, y'all got a couple thousand followers on Instagram. And it was like, because we had networks of people through our church network, through our work relationships, through people we meet while we're in the community.
Listen.
I would go out and personally sell 200, 300 tickets, and so then the bubble up
ETC.
was, it's and so I think that's the part that's also helpful when you're working a job. Let me say this. So when me and my wife, when I was doing music in 2010, New Year's Eve 2010, I sat down with my wife and I said, I heard this, I was listening to this Dave Ramsey podcast. We were going through this debt-free journey, and there was a proverb. I can't remember the thing of it, but it says, he who works diligently will always have abundance of food. He who chases fantasies will encounter poverty. Right. And so it hit me so hard. And I remember like, oh, is my music a fantasy? Like, am I just chasing fantasies? Right. And I put my wife to the side and I said, hey, it's New Year's Eve, 2010. I said, in a year from now, if we're in the same spot with music on a revenue stream system and on a number system, I need you to tell me to stop. I need you to tell me to stop, and I need to pivot and do something else. And a year later, we had that same conversation. And in that year, 2011, I think we had put out 3 mixtapes with DJ Wado, 2 retail albums, and, had landed a feature with Andy Mineo, with Lecrae, did tons of shows. That was one of the first big breakout House of Blues shows. We did over 500 tickets. And so my wife was really the one that was like, hey, it's been a year. There's no way that you can stop doing this. My wife was the one that was like, you have to keep doing this. And we were going into 2012 with 30 shows booked at colleges. We were primarily doing secular college shows. So that was kind of what we set a hard deadline. We said, hey, this is either going to work by this date, and there's going to be measurable fruit by this date.
Smart goals.
Or we're not doing it, and we're not going to just keep chasing it and keep saying I'm an artist and keep saying I'm an entrepreneur when there's nothing entrepreneurial about what I do, right? So what was that conversation like with you and your husband in terms of like some specific things that you guys have to figure out to say, hey, we're gonna keep doing this and go, not just do it, but go all in on it. What was that like, and what are some kind of takeaways people could get?
So I've talked about this before, and it's dope because my hubby is in the chat. And you know, we've talked about this before, where I came into the marriage with this grind, this grit. It was part of me, you know, because I know, like, yo, I can make moves, I can make things happen. And so, like, I did photography, and I've had contracts. It wasn't official yet. Like, I didn't get my DBA yet, but I had these like different things that I was bringing in. And earlier in our marriage, I was like, listen, like, I think like I should like just go all in and go full, 100% entrepreneur. And he wasn't ready. He was like, I don't know about that, because we were both in this thing together, grinding and hustling with our 9-to-5 jobs to make ends meet for the family, you know? So, and we were always like-minded on like, yo, this is priority, making sure we have a good foundation and having ownership. Like, we made sure we didn't spend a lot of money on our wedding so that we can have a house. We didn't want to rent. We wanted to own. So we were like, hey, it's more important for us to get a house than for us to have these fantastical, you know, things in a wedding, you know. So we were on that type time, but he wasn't really ready for this entrepreneurship type of vibe. But after some time, because I kept pushing, I was like, man, I'm telling you, I can do this. I can do this. So I kind of pushed him. And for a bit, I went full time entrepreneurship, and it did not work. There was a lot of clashing between us, and I'm like, man, I'm trying to grind, I'm trying to do this. Contracts weren't coming in as quickly as I knew. Like, I was learning, I was trying to figure it all out, and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna have to get me a job. I'm gonna have to go back to the job. I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board. Like, okay, all right,
you
and
right.
So, yeah, right. But I really truly believe that success didn't come because we weren't on the same page. And I'm speaking from our perspective. I'm not saying that it could work for anybody. I've seen it work for other people, but for us, I think because we were not necessarily ready together, it just didn't work. But years after that, he then came to me. I was patient. He came to me and he said, look, you grinding your little self off. And, you know, I'm rising in what I'm doing, because he's a Buffalo public school teacher. And he does a great job as a teacher. He's a 4th grade teacher. And every year, you know, they up they price, you know, up their tax. So he was able to have this stable financial circumstance for our family. And everything that I received was an added factor that would go to savings or create opportunities for our children, or, you know, my son went to private school, you know what I mean? So I was able to hustle for those extensions. When he saw that my hustle and my grind, and he started to see me, you know, he came to me and said, look, you could quit your job, go full-time entrepreneurship. I got you. Wow. And it was there when opportunities flourished. And this is 3 years ago, bruh.
Wow.
Full time, 3 years ago.
That's awesome.
And from 3 years ago, that's where I won that competition, $100,000 for my business. I did, you know, countless exhibits. You know, I'm with GOM, that's cool too. You know, just different opportunities, different successes that I found. I think it's all about that being on the same page.
That's so good. It's so practical too, like being on the same page. The just communication. A lot of that stuff is so simple, and I think most people don't quite understand how important it is. You mentioned God Over Money. I'm assuming you have some new music coming out. I follow you on Instagram, so I see your stuff, but I don't always know what's in the pipeline. talk about what new stuff. I know you just launched a Patreon. Congratulations on that.
No doubt. Thanks.
But yeah, tell us more about the things you got in the pipeline.
Yeah, no doubt. Before we jump into that, I do want to say this because I know a lot of times people talk this way, like, yeah, we're on the same page. And I don't want to paint this picture as if I was not frustrated with my husband for not seeing me and not seeing that, yo, I got that. I know how to do this. I was frustrated on like, yo, man, I gotta wait for you to realize, like, yo, we gotta do this. But I think there's something to learn within that. I had to be patient.
Come on.
I had to be on one accord. I had to, it's that submission that a lot of people be afraid of hearing. Like, yo, my husband's not ready. It is what it is. I'm gonna wait until we're both where we need to be, because it didn't work when I pushed it.
Yeah.
It's something about the man. It is what it is. It's something about the man who follows Christ. My husband is a follower of Christ. So as I follow him, as he follows Christ, I'm following Christ too, as I'm looking to him, and he's guiding me through this.
Come on.
So yeah, I had to wait. I had to chill. No matter how much I know I got to grind and I'm a hustle, I'm going to do this, and we're going to make moves, and then, to be real, when we went on this one accord, and things started to happen, and it seemed seamlessly. The doors just opened. The windows just, opened up. And I did look over to him. I said, I told you, man. He was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. And so it built a beautiful relationship between me and him that I just wanted to I just wanted to say that, because I don't think a lot of, especially women, at least I don't hear it a lot, to say, yo, I ain't afraid of submission or that word, because I know what I'm submitting to.
Yeah, that's
You feel
good.
me?
That's good. So the album is called The Acrylic.
Souls Acrylic.
Souls Acrylic. It just came out, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yep.
Talk about that.
No,
the
actually,
artwork
listen.
is fire.
Thank you. So, Souls Acrylic is kind of like an extension of my last project, which extended from my first. Souls Acrylic was my opportunity to be as creative as I wanted to be. It's jazz, it's poetry, it's lyricism, it's hip hop. So, I painted portraits on there that I wanted people to exhibit. And that's what I did. I talked about my family. I talked about just practical living. I read Proverbs every day. So that's, you'll hear that within the whole project. I talked about real stuff, and I tried to make sure that who I am as an artist was showcased through that. I didn't want to sound like everyone else, so I had to be true to me. That dropped on January 29th, and it looks like it's been doing pretty good. It hit number 6 on the iTunes hip hop charts.
Let's go.
Within a few days. That's crazy, right?
That's amazing. Yeah, and it's doing well on Spotify. I'm looking at the numbers. You're doing.
Bro, you're frozen.
Oh, am I frozen?
Yeah.
I'm frozen on FaceTime or on
FaceTime.
Okay, well, can you hear me though?
I can hear you.
Okay,
You're
I'm not
good.
frozen here, so we're just gonna roll with it.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, the numbers look great. Number 6 on iTunes. That's amazing, guys. Check out her music, because the music is like really good. Like, I mean, everything God Over Money puts out is really good, but everything I've heard from you, I was like, oh, this is a good look for the squad. Like from on multiple levels, and so I'm ecstatic for the stuff that you have coming. I saw you got the Patreon. Are we gonna get more YouTube content? I see there's a YouTube video out here that looks like it's this is live stream interview.
Yeah,
okay,
tonight.
We doing interviews.
Tonight.
Let's go. We finna be getting
yeah.
some more streaming, more interviews from you.
Yes. So I am a firm believer in just allowing people to journey through the process. Right. So created this project, Souls Acrylic. And so I have this kind of series called Behind the Canvas. And I wanted to highlight the people who people don't really get to see. So the producers, the graphic designers, the project management, the stylists for videos, the video production people. So tonight I'm going to be sitting down with Stephen Davis of 40K Designs. He is the graphic designer behind the art that was created. And so what I did was I collaborated with him. Being a photographer, I wanted to be able to showcase my work throughout the project. The cover is a photo that a local photographer, her name is Christy Taska, she took that photo, but every single graphic is a picture that I took. It's original photography, and then he went in and did some graphic design around it. Yeah, so it's pretty dope.
That's dope.
He's
I like
He's
that you're
really
highlighting the folks that don't always get highlighted. I think that's super dope. Do you have any final words, any call to action? Guys, go subscribe to her YouTube, by the way, because that's going to be popping. And she's already doing live streams that look amazing. As you can see, her lighting is amazing. Her setup is amazing.
Yeah.
So make sure y'all subscribe. Do you have any final words for the people before we get out of here?
Man, I mean, you heard it. Like, at the end of the day, you got someone, you know, like I say all the time, I was this little brown girl from the east side of Buffalo, slapped with labels, you know, told that I would be a failure to thrive, diagnosed emotionally handicapped. But man, I struggled, and, you know, it is what it is. But I kept pushing. Pray, push, persevere. Everything that you do, go all in. Make moves and stop making excuses, stop complaining, and put your mind to what it is that you're trying to achieve, you know, and thank God for his grace, because it's that faith concept. That's my foundation. That's what keeps me going. That keeps the fire. So I got faith in arts. For those who want to, you know, join the journey, you can go to my website, AI The Anomaly, that I like to call that my house. That's my home. So you can go there, and then from there you'll be directed to these, you know, lodging spaces. You can be directed to IG, and I'm on there a lot, YouTube, Twitter, and things like that. Tonight I have a live stream. You'll learn about the art concept. If you want to invest, you can through Patreon. Honestly, Patreon is there for me to utilize the proceeds to continue to pour into the next generation of creatives. So I create opportunities for youth by the use of those funds. And that's with everything I do. You buy merch, I'm pouring it and investing it into young people. I have a business, a company, and I make, you know, I do pretty good for myself. Everything on top of that, I'm just going to keep pouring into young people. So definitely help me help them.
Amen.
So yeah.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you, sis.
Kingstream Entertainment.
Fits your brand, and if it fits your vibe and your creativity, create a lot of content, learn the content, get better at making the content. That is how you get discovered.
Kingstream Entertainment. Bruce.
Joshua the King came down and bore it all. Yeah. Conversations front of the fireplace. All of my mistakes, how do I erase? Wanna operate at a higher pace. Birth pains causing the body to dilate. On a first name basis with the worst pain facing. Moments in isolation. See, I was hoping I would do this to get more family time. A busy mind and worried heart, is this not where I reside? I subscribed that all that traveling wasn't doing well for my soul. Glad I never made it when my name went through the rumor mill. I suppose that the Lord knows I'd have failed. Instead, I'm doing well at home, out my shell. Good book off the shelf, more dubs off the L's. I told Ray they ain't just gon'